Good afternoon. This is the Crematorium. We're confirming the ceremony time for Friday, 3 p.m. Has the body of your mother already been delivered? I almost dropped the phone. I was standing in my little yellow kitchen in Parma, just outside Cleveland, barefoot in my robe, tea bag still dangling in my mug. The sun was coming through the blinds in those dusty stripes it always does, and the dishwasher was humming. I'm sorry, I said slowly, pressing the phone tighter to my ear. Which mother? There was a pause, a rustle of papers. Well, yours, the woman said, voice going high and thin. We have an order from your daughter, paid in advance. The file says, cremation for Ellen Porter, age 68. That's you, right? My name landed in my stomach like a stone. Yes, I said. That's me. And I hate to disappoint you, sweetheart, but I'm very much alive. Silence. You know that thick silence when someone realizes they've stepped in it so badly they don't even know where to begin? That one. I'm so sorry, ma'am, she stammered. We had the paperwork, the death certificate, the authorization. Your daughter, Melissa Parker, signed everything. We always confirm with the family before... Before what? I cut in, my voice suddenly shaking. Before you burn the wrong old woman? She gulped. I could practically hear her shrinking into her chair. Can you please hold? I think there's been some kind of mistake. Oh, I don't think it's a mistake, I said, and I surprised myself with how calm I sounded. But yes, I'll hold. I put the phone on speaker and set it on the counter. The dishwasher hummed. A car drove by outside. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked at absolutely nothing, like it always does. My tea went cold. I stared at the phone like it was a snake. A death certificate? My daughter's signature? Friday? 3 p.m.? Prepaid? For a few seconds, my brain just refused to process it. I thought maybe there was another Ellen Porter in Cuyahoga County. Maybe some paperwork got switched. Maybe Melissa had signed for something else. And then, very slowly, reality slotted into place. My own daughter had filed me as dead. To get rid of me faster, to get the money faster. I pressed my thumb into the edge of the counter until it hurt, just to make sure I was, in fact, still solid and breathing and real. The woman came back on the line, sounding like she'd aged 10 years. Mrs. Porter, ma'am, I am so sorry. I spoke to my manager. We don't understand what happened, but if you're able, could you possibly come down here today? We need to verify some documents in person. I'll be there in an hour, I said. And, ma'am, could you not call the police yet? She added in a small voice. We'd like to understand internally first. We'll cooperate, of course. We're very confused. Oh, don't worry, I said, and my voice surprised me again, calm and cool like a glass of water with ice cubes clinking. I won't call the police. I hung up, stared at the phone, and then muttered to the empty kitchen, not yet anyway. To understand how I ended up with a time slot reserved for my own cremation, you need to understand my daughter. And you need to understand me. I'm Ellen, 68 years old, widowed, retired elementary school teacher. I have arthritis in my knees, a decent IRA, and one child, Melissa. My late husband, David, used to say I had the patience of a saint and the memory of a prosecutor. Both turned out to be handy. We bought that little one-story ranch in Parma in 1987. Olive green carpet, wood paneling, one bathroom where the tile never quite matched the grout. Over the years, we fixed it up, slowly, paycheck to paycheck. New floors, new roof, new kitchen. A backyard with 3 stubborn rose bushes I refused to pull out. David died of a heart attack in his sleep when he was 61. Just didn't wake up one morning. It was the kind of death men claim they want and the kind of widowhood no woman is ever ready for. Melissa was 32 then, married, working in some marketing job downtown, always busy. She came over that first week, cried with me, helped me go through his suits. I remember thinking we'd gotten through the hard years and we're finally going to have the kind of adult mother-daughter relationship you see in those sentimental commercials.
I was very wrong. Somewhere along the way, Melissa decided she was done with being middle class.
She started coming over with more expensive handbags, different nails every week, eyelashes that looked like they'd been installed with construction glue. "They're extensions, Mom," she'd laugh, waving her glass of wine. "Everyone has them." When I'd ask if she could swing by and drive me to a doctor's appointment, she always had a reason she couldn't. A big pitch, a crucial client dinner, a weekend trip. Then she started asking little questions. "Have you thought about downsizing, Mom? Have you met with an estate planner? Do you know how complicated probate can be if you don't structure your will right?" I'm not stupid. I knew where the conversation was going. "You'll get the house when I die," I'd say. "Is that not enough?" "It's not about that," she'd insist, making a face like I was paranoid. "It's about making things easier for everyone." What she meant was, easier for her. The last big fight we had was about 3 months before the crematorium called. She'd come over with a folder, color tabs, printed documents, the whole corporate dog and pony. "Mom, this is the place I've been telling you about," she said, sliding the brochure across the kitchen table. "Willow Creek Senior Living. It's so nice. They have yoga for seniors and movie nights and a shuttle. You'd have your own room. You don't need to be rattling around this old house by yourself. What if you fall?" "Willow Creek," I read. The brochure woman was smiling with a salad in front of her, all silver hair and perfect skin. "Looks expensive." "It's not bad," she said. "And with the equity in this house, plus your life insurance, you'd be set. They help you sell and handle everything. They just need a durable POA signed so I can manage it all. Power of attorney. We should just get that done." I looked up. "Power of attorney for what?" "For your finances and healthcare decisions," she said, like it was obvious. "So when something happens, I can just take care of it. Not scramble." "When something happens," I repeated. "You mean when I die? Or if I end up drooling in a chair?" "Mom," she said sharply, "don't be morbid." We went back and forth like that for an hour. She got snappier. I got quieter. That's my tell, by the way. I don't yell. I go still. Finally, I said, "Melissa, I love you. I also know you. You're not getting power of attorney over me. Not now, not yet, maybe never. And I'm not selling this house and moving into somewhere that smells like reheated chicken and Lysol so you can sleep better. You want less stress? Go to therapy." Her face closed like a door. "You're being unreasonable," she said coldly. "Everyone else's parents are planning for this. You're choosing to make things harder." "Everyone else's parents probably still drive," which I do. "And everyone else's parents probably remember who changed their diaper and took them to the ER when they broke their arm falling out of a tree," which I also do. She stood up so fast, the chair scraped the floor. "You know what? Forget it. Do whatever you want," she snapped, scooping the folder back into her bag. "But don't expect me to clean up your mess when something happens." She didn't hug me when she left. The next time I saw her in person was at the crematorium, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I got dressed like I was going into battle. Not in anything dramatic, just clean jeans, a navy sweater, comfortable shoes. I pulled my gray hair into a low bun, put on sunscreen, then makeup on top of that, because I may be old, but I am not careless. I tucked my Medicare card, my driver's license, my social security card, and a copy of my will. If someone's already declared you dead, it's good to be ready to prove you're not. The crematorium was over on the industrial side of town, tucked between a carpet warehouse and a tire place. Brick building, small parking lot, fake potted plants outside the entrance trying to class it up. Inside, it was all muted beige and soft music, the kind of anonymous sorrow blur they rely on to churn families through grief without anyone thinking too hard about what's happening in the back rooms. A young woman at the desk looked up and froze when she saw me. "Can I help you?" I said pleasantly. "I'm Ellen Porter. I spoke to someone about my cremation."
Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish. I'll, I'll get my manager, she whispered. A few minutes later, a man in his 50s came out. Thin, gray at the temples, glasses, the whole respectful funeral professional uniform. His name tag said Bradley.
She started coming over with more expensive handbags, different nails every week, eyelashes that looked like they'd been installed with construction glue. "They're extensions, Mom," she'd laugh, waving her glass of wine. "Everyone has them." When I'd ask if she could swing by and drive me to a doctor's appointment, she always had a reason she couldn't. A big pitch, a crucial client dinner, a weekend trip. Then she started asking little questions. "Have you thought about downsizing, Mom? Have you met with an estate planner? Do you know how complicated probate can be if you don't structure your will right?" I'm not stupid. I knew where the conversation was going. "You'll get the house when I die," I'd say. "Is that not enough?" "It's not about that," she'd insist, making a face like I was paranoid. "It's about making things easier, for everyone." What she meant was easier for her. The last big fight we had was about 3 months before the crematorium called. She'd come over with a folder, colored tabs, printed documents, the whole corporate dog and pony. "Mom, this is the place I've been telling you about," she said, sliding the brochure across the kitchen table. "Willow Creek Senior Living. It's so nice. They have yoga for seniors and movie nights and a shuttle. You'd have your own room. You don't need to be rattling around this old house by yourself. What if you fall?" "Willow Creek," I read. The brochure woman was smiling with a salad in front of her, all silver hair and perfect skin. "Looks expensive." "It's not bad," she said. "And with the equity in this house, plus your life insurance, you'd be set. They help you sell and handle everything. They just need a durable POA signed so I can manage it all. Power of attorney. We should just get that done." I looked up. "Power of attorney for what?" "For your finances and healthcare decisions," she said like it was obvious. "So when something happens, I can just take care of it, not scramble." "When something happens," I repeated. "You mean when I die? Or if I end up drooling in a chair?" "Mom," she said sharply, "don't be morbid." We went back and forth like that for an hour. She got snappier, I got quieter. That's my tell, by the way. I don't yell, I go still. Finally, I said, "Melissa, I love you. I also know you. You're not getting power of attorney over me. Not now, not yet, maybe not ever. And I'm not selling this house and moving into somewhere that smells like reheated chicken and Lysol so you can sleep better. You want less stress? Go to therapy." Her face closed like a door. "You're being unreasonable," she said coldly. "Everyone else's parents are planning for this. You're choosing to make things harder. Everyone else's parents probably still drive, which I do, and everyone else's parents probably remember who changed their diaper and took them to the ER when they broke their arm falling out of a tree, which I also do." She stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You know what? Forget it. Do whatever you want," she snapped, scooping the folder back into her bag. "But don't expect me to clean up your mess when something happens." She didn't hug me when she left. The next time I saw her in person was at the crematorium. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I got dressed like I was going into battle. Not in anything dramatic, just clean jeans, a navy sweater, comfortable shoes. I pulled my gray hair into a low bun, put on sunscreen, then makeup on top of that, because I am old, but I am not careless. I tucked my Medicare card, my driver's license, my social security card, and a copy of my will into my purse. If someone's already declared you dead, it's good to be ready to prove you're not.
The crematorium was over on the industrial side of town, tucked between a carpet warehouse and a tire place. Brick building, small parking lot, fake potted plants outside the entrance trying to class it up. Inside, it was all muted beige and soft music, the kind of anonymous sorrow blur they rely on to churn families through grief without anyone thinking too hard about what's happening in the back rooms. A young woman at the desk looked up and froze when she saw me. "Can I help you?" she asked, voice already tentative. "I'm Ellen Porter," I said pleasantly. "I spoke to someone about my cremation." Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish. I'll get my manager," she whispered. A few minutes later, a man in his 50s came out. Thin, gray at the temples, glasses, the whole respectful funeral professional uniform. His name tag said Bradley. "Mrs. Porter," he said, extending a hand. His palm was damp. "Thank you for coming in so quickly. Can we talk in my office?" Unless you've already turned me into ashes, I said dryly, in which case we're going to need a priest and a lawyer. He tried to smile. Failed. We sat in a small office with fake flowers and a framed print of a sunset that probably came as a package deal from some funeral supply catalog. On his desk was a manila file with my name on it. Just so we're clear, I began, crossing my legs carefully to buy myself a second. You received a death certificate for me. Yes, he said, filed electronically. We have to keep everything digital now. And an authorization form signed by my daughter. Yes, ma'am. And you believed I was dead. He swallowed. We rely on the documents we receive from doctors in the state, he said. We have no reason to doubt them. But our policy is to place a confirmation call with next of kin before any services. It's saved us from a few painful misunderstandings in the past. I'm very glad it did today. Me too, I said. I was just enjoying my tea. He slid the file toward himself, opened it, and turned the monitor so I could see the screen. There it was. Porter, Ellen, female, 68, deceased, acute heart failure, attending physician Dr. Kenneth Hall, time of death, 2:14 a.m. I don't know who that is, I said. I've never seen that doctor in my life. He clicked into another document. Electronic authorization, authorizing party, Melissa Parker, daughter, relationship, child, listed phone, her number, signature on file. I'm assuming, he said quietly, that you did not in fact pass away last Tuesday. I did not, I said. Although I admit, this week has been rough on my knees. He let out a helpless, humorless little laugh. Mrs. Porter, I don't know what to say. This is beyond anything I've seen in 20 years. We've had disputes, miscommunications, but not, he gestured vaguely toward me. This. I leaned in. Has my daughter scheduled anything else? A chapel service? A time? He nodded reluctantly. Friday, 3 p.m., basic cremation package, 1-hour service, closed casket. He hesitated. It's paid in full. Credit card. The name matches your daughter's. Incredible, I murmured. She didn't even go for the deluxe. Mrs. Porter, he said carefully, we are, of course, prepared to cancel everything. We can notify her that we cannot proceed, and if you'd like to involve law enforcement, we'll cooperate fully. This could be a case of fraud, identity theft. Oh, I'm sure it is. But no, don't cancel. He blinked behind his glasses. I'm sorry, can you say that again? Keep everything exactly as it is, I said. Process the payment, hold the slot. Friday at 3, I want that chapel reserved. He stared for a second longer, then something shifted, just a tiny bit. A flicker in his eyes that said, she's not hysterical, she's planning. We're very careful about how we use our facilities, he said slowly. We'd need assurances, documentation, waivers. You'll get everything you need. I'll show you proof I'm me. I'll sign whatever you want. In return, I want to see every document my daughter filed. I want copies. And I want your guarantee that you will not alert her to anything being wrong until after Friday. This is highly irregular.
So is calling a living woman to confirm her cremation, I replied. He winced. Fair point. I didn't go to the police. I went to the theater. Literally. There are two things most people don't know about me. One, I can parallel park a station wagon in spots you'd swear were physically too small. Two, I spent 15 years doing community theater on and off, back when Melissa was in high school and ignoring me in favor of boys who thought deodorant was optional. I met my friend Henry there. Back then, he was a skinny kid fresh out of college, directing plays in a church basement for gas money.
Now he runs a little black box theater downtown that somehow still exists, despite the city doing its best to crush anything not directly contributing to tax revenue. The place smells like dust, paint, and desperation. It's home. I walked in during daylight, when the lobby is just flyers on the wall and stackable chairs and a sad little concession counter with boxes of candy from last season. "Hello," I called. "Box office is closed. We open at—" A male voice shouted from inside, then came closer. "Oh my God, Ellen!" Henry came through the door in paint-splattered jeans and a t-shirt from a show he did 15 years ago. His beard had gone more salt than pepper. I'd gone to his 50th birthday last year. He was old now, too. When did we all get old? "Hey, kid," I said. He hugged me. I let him. I needed that hug more than he knew. "What are you doing here? Did Melissa drag you downtown? Are you finally going to be in one of my shows again?" he asked. "Please tell me you're sick of being retired and want to play a bitter grandmother. I've got 3 scripts that—" "Henry," I said quietly, "my daughter tried to have me cremated." He froze, with his mouth still open from the last word. "Okay," he said slowly. "I'm going to need context." So I gave it to him. The phone call, the file at the crematorium, the death certificate from some mystery doctor, my daughter's signature, the paid-in-full cremation, the fact that, on paper, I should already be in a freezer drawer somewhere with a toe tag. He listened, eyes getting darker with each detail. "Jesus," he muttered when I finished. "Ellen, I'm so sorry." "Don't you dare pity me," I said sharply. "I'm not a victim. I'm angry." He blinked, then nodded once. "Good. Anger we can work with." We sat on the edge of the stage, feet dangling over the black painted floor. The house lights were up. It felt like sitting in a confessional with 100 empty chairs. I could go to the police. I know that. I probably should. But police means courts, and courts mean time and lawyers and maybe a plea deal in a year and a half and some docket number somewhere that no one reads. And meanwhile, I'm still the crazy old woman who misunderstood. Henry listened, eyes getting darker with each detail. "Jesus," he muttered when I finished. "Ellen, I'm so sorry." "Don't you dare pity me," I said sharply. "I'm not a victim. I'm angry." He blinked, then nodded once. "Good. Anger we can work with." We sat on the edge of the stage, feet dangling over the black painted floor. The house lights were up. It felt like sitting in a confessional with 100 empty chairs. I could go to the police. I know that. I probably should. But police means courts, and courts mean time and lawyers and maybe a plea deal in a year and a half and some docket number somewhere that no one reads. And meanwhile, I'm still the crazy old woman who misunderstood. Henry listened, eyes getting darker with each detail. "Jesus," he muttered when I finished. "Ellen, I'm so sorry." "Don't you dare pity me," I said sharply. "I'm not a victim. I'm angry." He blinked, then nodded once. "Good. Anger we can work with." We sat on the edge of the stage, feet dangling over the black painted floor. The house lights were up. It felt like sitting in a confessional with 100 empty chairs. I could go to the police. I know that. I probably should. But police means courts, and courts mean time and lawyers and maybe a plea deal in a year and a half and some docket number somewhere that no one reads. And meanwhile, I'm still the crazy old woman who misunderstood. Henry listened, eyes getting darker with each detail. "Jesus," he muttered when I finished. "Ellen, I'm so sorry." "Don't you dare pity me," I said sharply. "I'm not a victim. I'm angry." He blinked, then nodded once. "Good. Anger we can work with." We sat on the edge of the stage, feet dangling over the black painted floor. The house lights were up. It felt like sitting in a confessional with 100 empty chairs. I could go to the police. I know that. I probably should. But police means courts, and courts mean time and lawyers, and maybe a plea deal in a year and a half, and some docket number somewhere that no one reads. And meanwhile, I'm still the crazy old woman who misunderstood. Henry looked out at the empty seats, then back at me. Ellen, are you asking me to help you stage a haunting? I snorted. Something like that, but strictly legal. No blood on the curtains. We started to talk. At first, it was vague, a confrontation, a reveal. And then slowly, like light coming up on a stage, details emerged. She'd set the time. Friday at 3. She expected to walk into that chapel, cry pretty tears, and walk out with paperwork that said her mother had been turned into ash. So, we'd give her a funeral. Just not the one she thought. We'll need access to the chapel, Henry said, pacing, lighting control, sound, a way to project things if you want documents, messages, and someone to film, obviously. Obviously, I said. You'll get your documentary, How My Daughter Buried Me Alive for Money. He pointed at me. Working title, but we're getting somewhere. I didn't ask him whether this was too much, whether it was cruel, whether I was being vengeful. If you've never had your own child file you as dead on government paperwork, you don't get a vote. The next few days were a blur of paperwork and phone calls. First, the crematorium.
Bradley was cautious, but once I showed him my ID and my will and the printout of my life insurance policy with Melissa's name circled in red ink, he understood exactly what was happening. "This is fraud," he said flatly, flipping through the pages. "Yes," I said, "but I'm not asking you to be law enforcement. I'm asking you to be a venue." He looked pained. "We're not a theater, Mrs. Porter." "No," I said, "you're a place where people confront death. You're a lot closer to the truth than any theater." We negotiated. He insisted on written waivers. I was not to touch any of the actual cremation equipment. No staff were to be filmed without consent. No guests of mine were allowed to harass his employees. "Done," I said. "In return, you keep my status as deceased strictly between us until 3:15 p.m. on Friday." He winced at the word deceased, looking at me like I might vanish mid-sentence. "Agreed," he said finally. Second, the insurance company. I'd taken out a modest life insurance policy when Melissa was a kid, back when I thought I'd spend my retirement worrying about my hips, not my offspring's ethics. The man on the phone introduced himself as David from Claims and launched into his script. "Before we begin, I have to inform you that this call may be monitored or recorded for quality assurance purposes." "Good," I said, "because I'm about to tell you something very interesting, David." I told him everything, calmly, step by step. I could hear his fingers flying over a keyboard. "We don't have a claim filed yet," he said, sounding a little shaken. "But if what you're saying is accurate, this is attempted fraud. We will absolutely flag your account, note that no payouts are to be processed without direct, live confirmation from you, and escalate this to our internal investigation team." "Perfect," I said, "because on Friday, you're going to see a video online that will make your job very easy." "We don't normally use YouTube as evidence," he said weakly. "Maybe it's time you started," I replied. Third, my lawyer. I'd put off updating my will. Widowhood is a messy place. Sometimes you don't want to look at the paperwork that says you're on the clock. But nothing motivates quite like finding out your heir is ready to shovel you into an oven early. I went to see Marjorie, the same estate attorney David and I had used to set things up years ago. She's a tiny woman with white hair and eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Ellen," she said when I sat down, "you look like someone just ran over your azaleas." "Worse," I said. "My daughter reserved a time to run over me." I gave her the abbreviated version. Her expression darkened. "You understand you can press charges. Forgery, fraud, filing false documents with the state, attempting to fraudulently claim life insurance." "I understand.
And I'm not ruling it out, but right now I want to start with something more immediate. Which is? She asked. I want you to draft a new will, I said, effective immediately, removing Melissa from any and all inheritance. Marjorie raised an eyebrow. Completely? Completely, I said. My throat tightened, but I forced the word out. I want the house sold after I die. I want the proceeds, along with my retirement accounts and whatever's left of the life insurance, to go into a fund for elderly people whose kids have abandoned or exploited them. You know the organizations better than I do. Pick one with a good rating. Maybe something local. Marjorie watched me for a long moment. It's a clean decision, she said. No half measures. She made hers. I'm making mine. We went through the details. Beneficiaries, executors, medical directives, everything. My legal explanation limit for the day was definitely reached, but the short version is, by the time I walked out, my daughter was no longer in line to get so much as my old Tupperware. Marjorie slid the folder toward me. And Ellen, she said, her voice gentler, if you decide to press charges later, this will only help. Juries like clear boundaries. Thank you, I said. My voice cracked just a little. For now, I'll let her bury it herself. In between all that grown-up business, I went to rehearsals. Yes, rehearsals. Henry took this as seriously as any show he's ever directed. Maybe more. We need timing, he said, standing in the empty chapel with me and Bradley on Wednesday afternoon. Lights at the exact right moment. Sound cues.
No dead air. Sorry, bad phrase. The crematorium's chapel was small. Rows of beige chairs, a simple altar, a podium, a couple of artificial ferns. At the front, on rollers, was a platform where the casket would sit before being moved back for the rest of the process. There was a cheap sound system hooked into a little console, lights that could dim in zones, nothing fancy, but enough. It's not Broadway, Henry said, walking around, testing echo, but I've done miracles with less. We'll bring in a small projector. I'll have my guy hook into your speakers with a laptop. We'll rig the casket lid to open slowly. Do you have claustrophobia? I had a child. I've already survived worse. He smirked. We ran the sequence. Funeral music. A priest at the front. Henry had a friend, an actor with that gentle voice presence people trust. We decided it'd be less suspicious if someone other than Bradley led the service. Lights dim, my pre-recorded voice from the speakers. Then, lights up. Me sitting up in the coffin, very much alive. Henry insisted I practice it 3 times. You're not 20 anymore, he said. No offense. Sitting up in a confined space is going to be taxing. We need you to know exactly where your hands go so you don't smack your head. Always the charmer, I said, climbing into the casket for the first time. It was strange. Lined with off-white satin, firm mattress, smelled faintly of wood polish and something floral from the last spray someone had laid across it. I lay down and looked up at the lid. These things always creep me out, I used to tell David. If he put me in one, I'd haunt him. I heard Henry's voice above me, muffled. Well, you're about to haunt the living. On a budget. We lowered the lid. It went dark. My heart thumped loud in my ears. For a moment, a sharp edge of panic tried to claw its way up my throat. I was in my own coffin. If someone walked out and locked that door, it would take a long time for anyone to notice. Except they weren't going to, because I was still in control. I focused on my breathing. In, out. I thought about my roses at home. About David's laugh, about the time Melissa was 3 and fell asleep on my chest, drooling into my shirt, totally trusting me to keep her safe. Then I thought about the forged death certificate and the paid-in-full cremation. The panic burned itself up on that anger. Ready? Henry's voice came through the little gap at the edge of the lid. Roll the tape, I said. We rehearsed the voiceover too. Henry sat me in front of a microphone in his theater and had me read it. We rewrote it twice. He wanted the right balance, not too emotional, not too flat, matter-of-factly devastating. Thank you all for coming to see me off, my own voice said through the chapel speakers, disembodied, echoing off the walls. But you're a little early.
Even knowing it was me, even expecting it, the hair on my arms prickled. "Good," Henry said, scribbling notes. "If you're creeping yourself out, we're in business." We edited in a little soft static before my voice, like an old recording starting. We tested the lights, full dark, then a slow rise, then a tight focus on the casket. Bradley's staff watched one of the run-throughs. One of them, a woman maybe in her 40s, crossed herself when I sat up. "This is intense," she said. "It's justice," I replied. Friday came faster than I expected. Funny how time works when you're counting down to your own funeral. I woke up before my alarm. The house was so quiet it hummed. I made coffee instead of tea, strong enough to wake the dead, pardon the expression. I stood in front of my closet for a long time. Black felt too on the nose. I ended up in a deep burgundy dress I'd worn to a wedding once, with a black cardigan and sensible flats. I curled my hair a little around my face, put on lipstick, pearls David had given me on our 20th anniversary. If I was going to rise from the dead, I was going to look good doing it. I left a note on the kitchen table. It wasn't for anyone in particular, more for me. If I don't come back, it's because I changed my mind and moved to Florida. The roses are on their own. At the crematorium, the parking lot was already half full by 2:30. I recognized some of the cars.
My sister's van from Akron, my brother-in-law's truck, Melissa's shiny white SUV, the one she'd bought because everyone at her level drove one. "Ready?" Henry asked, meeting me at the side entrance. "As I'll ever be," I said. We went in through the staff corridor, quiet and cool, past a door with a sign that said, "Authorized personnel only." I looked at it and thought about how close I'd come to being pushed past that line without knowing. The casket was already in place in the chapel, closed, sitting up front. Glossy dark wood. Rental, Bradley had explained. They only bought a few and used them over and over for viewings before cremation. The actual burn boxes were much simpler. "Everyone seated," Henry said, checking his phone. "Your leading lady is in the front row, right side." "How does she look?" I asked. "Like someone whose favorite restaurant just comped her dessert," he said dryly. "Very tragic. Perfect makeup." We slipped into the discreet door, tucked behind a curtain near the front of the chapel. From there, I could hear everything through the thin wall. Soft organ music, whispers as people settled, the murmur of my own funeral. "Showtime," Henry whispered. Bradley helped me into the casket, his face pale. He adjusted the small wireless mic clipped inside near my head, just in case we needed backup audio. We'd tested everything, but he wasn't taking chances. "If at any point you feel unwell, just knock 3 times on the lid," he said. "We'll open immediately." "Understood," I said. "Let's go bury me." They closed the lid. Darkness again. This time, though, there was a strange calm inside it. Not peace exactly. I wasn't that generous yet. But a sense of direction. I knew what was going to happen. I'd planned every beat. From outside came the muffled voice of Henry's actor friend, doing his best solemn officiant. "Thank you all for coming today to honor the life of Ellen Porter." I heard seats creak as people shifted, a sniffle or two. Faked, probably. My sister is sentimental, but not that good an actress. When he invited loved ones to say a few words, there was a pause. Then Melissa's heels clicked as she walked toward the front. I know that sound. I used to listen for it when she was a teenager sneaking in late. "Mom was a wonderful woman," she began, and I nearly laughed out loud inside the coffin. I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. "She always tried to help her family. She sacrificed so much." Her voice caught, just the right amount. She'd practiced this. She talked about my difficult last years, about how I'd lost myself after Dad died. She made it sound like I was a pale shadow in a dark bedroom, not a woman who still drove herself to the grocery store and did her own taxes. She did not mention trying to ship me off to Willow Creek like a broken recliner. And even though she could be stubborn, she said, with this little tremor that made my sister gasp sympathetically, "I know she loved us in her own way. And now she's at peace. At peace. Ready to be cooked at 1800 degrees for 2 hours, apparently." When she finished, there were sniffles.
Someone dabbed their eyes. Someone patted her shoulder. I heard my sister whisper, "You did great, honey." The officiant thanked her. Then, right on cue, the music swelled. Soft piano, something generic but emotional. The kind of track that always sounds like it's about to resolve and never quite does. Underneath it, very faint, I heard the click, click from the booth where Henry was, signaling the light cues. I counted to 10. The music cut. The lights went out. There were gasps. Someone exclaimed, "Oh!" The room went from soft and warm to dark and disorienting in a heartbeat. Perfect. A beat of silence. Then, through the chapel speakers, my own recorded voice filled the dark. "Thank you all for coming to see me off, but you're a little early." You'd think screaming is one sound. It's not. It's layers. There was the high-pitched shriek from some cousin's wife, the low, shocked, "What the?" from a nephew, a choked sob, someone saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," over and over like a broken metronome. Through it all, there was one sound that cut through everything. Melissa's strangled, breathless gasp. I'd know that sound anywhere. The lights came back up slowly, like dawn in a horror movie. All eyes went to the casket. The lid rose with a smooth, soundless lift.
I sat up. Let me tell you something about rising from your own coffin. It's easier if you lead with your head and shoulders and pretend you're just getting out of a deep recliner. If you think about the symbolism too much, you'll get dizzy. I blinked against the sudden light. Rows of faces stared back at me. My sister's mouth hung open. My brother-in-law's eyes bulged so far I worried they'd pop. Two of Melissa's co-workers, who'd apparently come straight from the office, judging by the badges hanging around their necks, looked like they'd fallen right into the world's worst team-building exercise. And my daughter had gone the color of cheap copy paper. Her mascara, however, was holding steady. I swung my legs over the side of the casket and slid down to my feet. The chapel was so quiet I could hear my own joints creak. "What's wrong, dear?" I asked, smoothing my cardigan. My voice carried beautifully, thank you, years of projecting from the stage. "Aren't you happy to see your mother alive?" Someone whimpered. Melissa's lips moved, but no sound came out. I took a step toward the aisle. My hands were steady. The adrenaline would hit later, I knew. Right now, I was pure motion. "Hi, Linda," I said to my sister as I passed. "You look good. How's your hip?" She just stared. At the back of the chapel, near the door, Henry's camera was rolling. Professional rig, not some shaky phone video. He'd promised me he'd get the whole thing. "Mom?" Melissa finally croaked. "What? How? How am I here? Upright? Undusted? Not in a can on your mantle?" A few people flinched. Dark humor, I've learned, separates the ones who can handle the truth from the ones who need everything sugar-coated. "I hear," I continued, turning halfway so I could address the whole room, "that there was some confusion. Somebody declared me dead without checking whether I was still breathing." A murmur went through the crowd. I glanced at Bradley, standing discreetly near the side wall. He looked like he wanted to melt into it. He gave me the slightest nod. Right on cue, the screen at the front of the chapel flickered on. We'd set up a portable projector. Probably the first time that chapel had ever hosted a PowerPoint presentation. On the screen, in large black letters, appeared "Documentary footage, the Living Dead Mother Case." "Too much?" Henry had asked when we designed the title card. "Not enough," I replied. The first image on the screen was a blown-up copy of the electronic death certificate. "There it is, folks," I said, gesturing like a game show host. "According to the state of Ohio, I died last Tuesday of acute heart failure. Didn't even get a chance to reschedule my hair appointment." Uneasy laughter bubbled from a couple of people too shocked not to respond. "Never met that doctor before. Is he here? No?" I cupped my ear to my ear theatrically. "No? Just the grieving family, then?" The slide changed. Now, the cremation authorization form. Authorizing party, Melissa Parker. Relationship, daughter. Signed,
dated. A neat, practiced signature in that familiar slant I used to see on permission slips and birthday cards. Melissa made a small, choking sound. "That's your name, isn't it, honey? I know it pretty well. I wrote it on your lunchbox 1,000 times. That's not—" She started, then faltered. "Mom, this is some kind of joke, right? You're doing one of your theater things? Oh, now you remember I did theater. Yes, it is a theater thing, but the script wasn't mine. You wrote the first draft when you filed that paperwork." Behind me, the screen changed again. Now it showed screenshots of text messages. We'd redacted the phone numbers but left the contact names. "Just sign it, it's easy. The state never checks if they're old and sick anyway." One text from Melissa read, "I have a guy who can file the death certificate electronically." Another screen showed from a contact saved as Ken Doc. "Won't be cheap. If the policy pays out and we sell the house, it's more than worth it. She's miserable anyway."
This is humane in a way. Humane. I had to take a careful breath at that one, or I'd have done something less YouTube-friendly. Gasps rippled through the chapel. "Mom, those are out of context," Melissa burst out, finding her voice at last. You don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" I said, arching an eyebrow. "Is the context that you thought I'd conveniently drop dead before anyone asked questions?" She shook her head wildly. "This is being twisted. You don't understand. I was overwhelmed, and that doctor, he said—" "Oh, I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You thought the paperwork would go through, the crematorium would do their job, the death certificate would stick, and the insurance would pay out. You thought the woman who carried you for 9 months and worked double shifts to keep a roof over your head was easier to manage as a line item than a living, breathing person with opinions?" Her eyes filled with tears. For once, I didn't feel even a flicker of sympathy. I turned back to the rest of them. "I could have gone to the police," I said, projecting so even the people in the back rows couldn't pretend they didn't hear. "I still can. Insurance fraud is a crime last I checked. So is forging documents. So is filing a false death certificate." I met the gaze of one of Melissa's coworkers. She looked away, cheeks burning. "But I decided to start here," I continued, "with the people who know her, the ones who work with her, the ones who nod along when she complains about her stubborn mother. I wanted you all to see what stubborn really looks like." I held up my hand. "For the record," I said, "stubborn is choosing to live in my own home on my own terms, for as long as I safely can. Stubborn is saying no when your child tries to bully you into signing away your autonomy. Stubborn is climbing out of your own coffin to stop them from burning you while you're still alive." Someone in the back actually clapped, just once, a single startled smack of hands, then stopped, embarrassed. On the screen, Henry cut to a new set of images, copies of my revised will. The sections where Melissa's name used to be listed as beneficiary, now replaced with the name of a local nonprofit that helped low-income seniors with housing and legal aid. "I've already informed my insurance company and my lawyer," I said, not taking my eyes off my daughter. "All agreements in your favor are canceled, effective immediately." Her face crumpled. "Mom, you can't do that," she whisper-shouted. "You can't." "Oh, I can," I said softly. "And I did. My money and property will go to a fund that helps elderly people whose children have thrown them out of their lives, or, apparently, tried to roast them like Thanksgiving turkeys." The room made a little shocked oof at that. "Mom, please," she said, tears spilling now. "You're overreacting. It wasn't like that. I thought you'd be dead. I thought you wouldn't find out. You thought you were entitled to shortcut the part where you wait for the natural end of my life like every other heir on the planet." I stepped closer. She actually flinched. "I raised you,"
I said quietly. "I'm not perfect, I know that, but I never would have done this to my own parents. I don't know who taught you to treat people like problems to be solved, but I'm done being your problem." I, I was trying to help," she whispered helplessly. I laughed, a short, sharp sound. "If this is your idea of help, God help anyone who can't fight back." Behind me, Henry cleared his throat. Hi," he said, stepping a little more into view. He lifted the camera slightly so everyone could see it. "For full transparency, I'm Henry. I'm a documentary filmmaker. This entire event is being recorded." "What?" Melissa's head snapped toward him. "You can't film this! You can't use this! I don't consent!" "There's a general legal concept about reasonable expectations of privacy in a public ceremony. But don't worry, I'll blur your face if you'd like. I can just leave your name and voice in. Or the texts. They're pretty self-explanatory." "That's illegal," she insisted. Attempting to cremate someone who's still alive is also illegal. Yet here we are. For a second, our eyes locked. In that moment, I remembered everything.
The tiny baby they laid on my chest while I cried and laughed, so overwhelmed I could barely see. The 5-year-old who ran into my arms after kindergarten with paint on her hands and a drawing of me and Mommy. The terrible 13-year-old who told me she hated me and slammed doors so hard the frames rattled. The nervous 16-year-old who called me crying from a party and asked me to come get her. The 22-year-old I hugged at her college graduation, thinking, we made it. We did it. Somewhere between then and now, I'd lost her. Or she'd lost herself. Maybe both. "I'm not putting you in jail, Melissa," I said finally, my voice dropping. "That's not my call. The insurance company and the state will do what they do. If they decide to investigate, I won't stop them. But I'm not going to spend whatever years I have left tied up in court because you tried to treat me like expired meat." She blinked rapidly. "I'm doing something worse," I continued. "I'm taking away the very things you were ready to cremate me for. My money and your good reputation." "You can't!" She started again, but the words fell apart. She swung toward the audience. "She's manipulating this. She's making me look like a monster. You all know I'm not." "Do they?" I asked quietly. "Do you?" Silence. No one rushed to her defense. Not her aunt, who suddenly found the carpet very interesting. Not her coworkers, who looked like they'd just watched a training video on what not to do with client funds. Not the cousin, who'd always joked about being there for the will reading. Slowly, like a tide going out, people began to stand. One by one, they drifted toward the exit. No shouting, no big dramatic speeches, just distance. You'd be amazed how loud footsteps on carpet can sound when they're walking away from you. Melissa stood frozen in the front row, watching them go. I almost felt bad. Almost. "Bradley," I said, turning to the funeral director, "thank you for the use of your chapel. And for the accidental wake-up call." He nodded, still pale. "Mrs. Porter, I'm so sorry this happened at all." "Me too," I said. "But if it had to happen, at least we got a good show." Henry stepped closer, lowering the camera. "Got it all," he murmured. "Every last second." "Good," I said. "People need to see what some of us are dealing with." I walked back up to the casket and picked up my purse from where we'd hidden it behind the platform. My fingers brushed the satin interior. "I still don't want to be buried in one of these," I told Bradley. "When my time comes for real, just sprinkle me somewhere nice, somewhere my daughter doesn't know." Behind me, Melissa made a choked sound. "Mom, please," she whispered. "We can talk about this. We can fix this." I turned. "Fix it?" I repeated. "We can't unfile a death certificate. We can't unplot my cremation. The only thing we can do is tell the truth. And the truth is, you chose money over me.
I'm just giving you exactly what you chose. Life without me, and without my money. Her legs buckled. For a second, I thought she was going to faint. Bradley stepped forward instinctively, but her coworker caught her arm. "Are you okay?" the coworker murmured. I didn't think she wasn't supposed to." The coworker's face hardened. "Yeah," she said quietly. "That's pretty clear." They led her to a chair. I didn't watch. If I'd watched, I might have lost my nerve. And I had one more important thing to do. The video went online 3 days later. Henry called it, "Mom rose from her coffin at her own cremation. Not a prank." I told him the parenthetical was tacky. He told me the internet was tacky. He won. He uploaded the short version first, 10 minutes, just the call-out, the reveal, the documents, and a snippet of Melissa's texts. Faces blurred except mine and his, unless people gave explicit permission. It didn't matter. Anyone who knew us recognized the setting, the voices, the story. It spread fast, faster than I expected. The local news picked it up first. "Ohio mother declared dead finds out about her own cremation," the segment was called. They used some stills from the video, my face emerging from the casket frozen mid-blink. Not my best angle. Then one of those true crime commentary channels did a breakdown.
They paused the text messages and analyzed them in that disembodied narrator voice that makes everything sound like an urban legend. Then some big influencer posted a reaction. By the end of the week, there were memes. "Me rising from my coffin when my kid tries to spend my retirement money early," one caption read. "Over my face." I didn't mind. If I was going to be famous, I'd rather it be for refusing to die on command. Melissa, on the other hand, did not enjoy the attention. Her company quietly took her off client accounts, pending internal review. HR requested a meeting. Their legal department, I'm sure, was not thrilled to see attempted insurance fraud in the keyword mix with their employee's name. The state's office that handled vital records reached out too. Bradley had filed a report with them as he was legally obligated once he realized a false death certificate had been entered into the system. I got a letter from some investigator with a long title saying they were reviewing irregularities and might need my testimony. I wrote back and said I was happy to answer written questions, but I was not going to spend my golden years sitting in a courthouse unless absolutely necessary. As for Melissa's mysterious doctor friend, well, let's just say it's not great for your license when screenshots of you offering to file death certificates on the side make it into a viral documentary. Consequences came, slowly, bureaucratically, as they always do. I didn't track every detail. I didn't want to. I'd done my part. The rest was between her, the state, and whoever she prayed to at night. What I did track was my own life, the part that came after. I sold the house. That surprised some people. "You love that place," my sister said on the phone. We were slowly speaking again, in careful, measured conversations that tiptoed around the big event like it was an elephant asleep on the coffee table. "I did love it," I said. "I also almost got burned for parts because I loved my independence too much. Time for a change." I found a little apartment in a lakeside town a couple of hours away. Smaller, quieter, still Ohio, but far enough that running into Melissa at the grocery store was highly unlikely. I donated half my furniture, sold the rest. The roses, I left. Let the next person figure out how to get them to bloom. I brought my books, my photos, David's old record player, and the essentials. It's funny how little you really need once you pare it down. At 68, I was done hoarding someday. I volunteered twice a week at the very nonprofit I'd made the beneficiary in my will. They help seniors with exactly the kind of situation I'd found myself in. Kids trying to take over finances, forced moves, coerced signatures. I sat with people while they filled out forms, listened to stories that made my own seem almost quaint.
One woman's son had sold her car without telling her and taken out a loan in her name. Another had been pressured into signing over the deed to her house in exchange for care, only to be dropped at a nursing facility 2 months later. We shared coffee and bitter jokes. "You're the coffin lady, aren't you?" one of them asked me quietly one afternoon. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She smiled, a little embarrassed. She said, "My niece showed me the video. I recognized you in the still they used on the news. You've got," she waved a hand in front of her own forehead, "that same stubborn wrinkle mine." I touched my forehead self-consciously. "Guess I am," I said. "I didn't realize I had fans." "Not fans," she said. "Just people who are glad someone said no. Out loud. Where everyone could hear it." That sat with me for a long time. I didn't hear from Melissa for months. There were a few attempts, texts, a voicemail or two. "Mom, can we talk? Please call me. We need to fix this. This is ruining my life. I lost my job. People are harassing me." I didn't respond. I wasn't the one who had made her choices. Henry kept editing the longer version of the documentary, the full cut, with more context, interviews with other seniors, even a little segment with Marjorie explaining in very broad, non-boring strokes how common financial exploitation of elders is and what to do if you suspect it. "We're going to submit it to festivals," he told me.
It's not just your story, you know. It's all of them. Good, I said. Maybe someone will see it before they sign something they shouldn't. We had a small premiere at his theater. The lobby was packed. Someone brought cupcakes shaped like coffins. Tasteful, if a bit on the nose. I sat in the back row, watching myself climb out of that casket. I almost didn't recognize the woman on screen. She looked taller, fiercer. Then she opened her mouth, and it was just me again. Afterward, people came up to me, one by one. "Thank you for doing that," a young woman in her 20s said, eyes bright. "My grandmother's going through something similar, and yeah, I sent her the video. It helped." "I wish my dad had done something like that," an older man murmured. "Instead, he just gave in. Let my sister take everything. Died angry. I'm glad you didn't." I accepted their thanks, knowing they weren't really for me. They were for the idea, for the possibility that you don't have to go quietly just because you're old. As for Melissa, about a year after the funeral, I got a letter, real paper, handwritten, not a text, not an email. That alone almost made me sit down. I opened it at my little kitchen table in my new little kitchen with its new little view. "Mom, I know you probably won't read this, or maybe you will and throw it away. I don't know what to say that won't sound like an excuse. I was scared. I was stressed. I was stupid. I listened to the wrong people. I told myself what I was doing wasn't that bad, that you were miserable anyway, that it was just paperwork. Seeing you in that casket, I still have nightmares about it. I lost my job. A lot of people don't talk to me anymore. Some deserved, some maybe not. I have to live with that. I've been in therapy. My therapist says I need to understand where my need for control comes from. So that's a fun project. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for money. I guess I'm asking if there's any version of our relationship that still exists, even if it's just an occasional email with pictures of your roses. Love, if I'm allowed to say that, Melissa." I read it twice. Then I put it in a drawer. The old me would have responded right away, would have rushed to smooth it over, to find the good, to salvage what could be salvaged. The new me, coffin me, took her time. 3 weeks later, I wrote back. "Dear Melissa, I'm glad you're in therapy. I don't say that to be snide. I mean it. You need it. We all do, in our own ways. What you did was not a mistake. It was a series of choices. You chose people who told you what you wanted to hear. You chose not to check on me before signing.
You chose to proceed even when you had doubts. You chose money over me. Those choices have consequences. You're living them, so am I. Right now, the version of our relationship that exists is this. You are my daughter, biologically and historically. I do not trust you with my life, my money, or my death. That can change over time. Trust can be rebuilt, slowly, brick by brick. Actions, not words. If in a year you're still in therapy, still doing the work, still taking responsibility, not just writing about it, I'm open to a coffee in a public place. Until then, you can see my roses in the video. They're in the background of the interview Henry did in my backyard. Remember? Love, if I'm allowed to say that, Melissa. I mailed it. Then I made myself a cup of tea and sat by my window. The lake outside was gray, choppy, a little angry looking. It calmed me. I don't know what will happen with Melissa and me long term. Maybe we'll sit down someday and talk like adults, and she'll cry and I'll cry, and we'll build something small but real out of the wreckage. Maybe we won't. Maybe the last time she ever sees me will be on a screen, climbing out of that coffin, pearls catching the chapel light. Either way, I'm okay. Because here's what I know now, with a clarity I wish I'd had earlier. Revenge isn't about destroying the other person. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. I didn't put my daughter in jail. I didn't hurt her physically. I didn't scream or hit or throw things. I did something much worse in her world. I told the truth loudly. I took away the two things she valued most, my money and her facade. I turned her secret into a story. And then I stood up in my own coffin and walked out of the life she'd planned for me and into one I chose for myself. Alive, on my own feet, right on time.
Your watch to the end. Be click here. You will hear another story from my grandma.